Rabbi Lazar, before he would pray, he would give a coin to the needy. And then he would behold the face of God. He would connect to an intense light of God that would be bestowed upon him as a divine kindness during his prayer. That was the basic idea. And the idea is that we, through our act of kindness, we are then eliciting, arousing on high God's kindness that he bestows upon us, the inwardness of him that we can connect to in our prayers. So now Rebbe today asks, well, if that's the case, it's coming from God's kindness, why is it necessary that I have to do something for God's kindness? Why is it necessary that I do something for getting this illumination in my prayers, that I have to be charitable beforehand? In any case, it's God's kindness that is beyond. So now the Rebbe says, well, we have to elicit God's kindness. It's interesting, in another place, he says that God created the world out of his kindness, but once he created us, then it's dependent on us doing acts of loving kindness that should elicit his divine kindness. But the Alter Rebbe says here, and that's what he said, we learned that previously, but now he says, is because there isn't just kindness that comes from above, there's also the midah of gvura, tzimtzum, contraction, holding back, refrain. And therefore, that might be what we would get. So therefore, it's necessary for us to arouse the divine kindness. It's dependent on us, on how we bestow life upon others through acts of charity, sustaining those that are in need. That arouses an equivalent kindness, and even beyond that, from above. As the sages say, that man is meted out measure for measure. The term in Hebrew is midah she'adam meided ba, meided in lo. It's interesting. The word, it's one word midah, meided. Midah means the measure that we mete out is what will be measured to us. So if we measure out acts of loving kindness, being charitable, then we'll be treated by kindness from above. Now, what is that kindness? So here the Alter Rebbe asks a question. It doesn't seem to be the giving a coin to charity before you pray. It doesn't seem that what you're getting is measure for measure over here. So he explains. It says, if you give life here, then seemingly what you should get measure for measure should be life, spiritual life, in Olam Haba, in Gan Eden, that your soul then will get from that light, from that act of loving kindness, that mitzvah that you've done. And the Alter Rebbe doesn't explain this here, but we've learned previously this idea that you do a mitzvah, you create a garment That garment is something that you wear, so to speak, figuratively speaking, in Garden of Eden. And what is the purpose of wearing a garment? You did a mitzvah, it creates a garment. That garment allows us, just as a garment here, gives us the capability to weather the weather, right? That we can weather the storm, so to speak. Figuratively speaking, in Gan Eden, the storm of a glimmer of light of God is so fantastic that we can, wearing the proper garment, which is the mitzvah that we've done, creates that garment, we can now experience the light of that mitzvah. So isn't that what we should be getting? As opposed to what indeed God is giving, which is so much more, actually. He's giving us now. Now, he's not giving us because we did kindness, and now he's giving us, a candy, what we would consider perhaps a candy, something materially, or even something, whatever, a feel-good thing. What is God giving us? You give charity, then you go pray. He's granting us actual illumination of godliness now, in a manner that the darkness of my life, and where's that darkness, is in my heart, because the heart on the exterior desires its own desires, its own lusts, its own, whatever you want, its own agenda, right? And now that you gave charity before your prayers, you're going to get a light that will help with that darkness of the heart, which we call tshuva, ilah, the higher level of tshuva. And this seems to be so far and above our actions. I mean, all we did was be charitable. Not necessarily went so much out of our way. And we get life in this world, not in the world to come. And life in this world, as our sages say, better 1 hour of repentance and good deeds in this world than all of the life of the world to come. Because in the world to come, yes, you make a garment that gives you the protection, so to speak, protection that you can get the glimmer of ray of light in the Garden of Eden that our soul goes after 120, but you're only getting a ray. You're only getting a glimmer. You're not getting the essence of God. That you're not getting. Where are you getting that? Here. So it seems to be an apparent disproportion that by giving tzedakah, charity, before one's prayers should result in such a superior revelation of what we call tshuva ilah, the higher form of penitence, which means return to God, connection to God, that we have that experience, or can have that experience in our prayers today, not in the world to come, but today. So the Alter Rebbe short class finishes here, is leaving us with a question, and maybe tonight we won't be able to go to sleep because we're left with this question. We'll have to come back tomorrow for the answer. Why would such a small, simple act give us the capability, the wherewithal to experience an illuminated darkness of my heart in my prayers, that it is tshuva ilah, such a superior form of divine connection and revelation of godliness to me in my prayers? That's the question. Answer will be tomorrow. Be by way of a metaphor to appreciate and to understand this concept. But that's it. That's it for today. Okay, let's unpack a little bit, or a lot of it. One point here that our sages say, Measure for measure is meted out to us. Um, and sometimes we might not see that in our lives. Um, and sometimes we feel, oh, what do you mean? I put effort, I did, and there was no return. So I think what we have to be careful is, what's the return? What's the measure that we're getting? What the measure for measure that's meted out? We what is it that maybe we had an expectation for something that is, um, you know, not what it means here. That measure, that whatever we mete out, that's what we've been measured and given back, so to speak. But this idea, the more I think we think about it, the more we see the kinder we are, the kinder the world seems to get. Right? The more negative we become, the more people seem to be negative and the world seems to be negative. It seems to be something that I guess can be quite apparent. That's one point. Second point is the greatness of being connected now in this world, which is through the mitzvah that we do. We connect to the essence of God and to a light that can really change something for us. Through the mitzvah, we have a light, and here it's particularly through prayer, that can actually change something in our heart. That the heart is a place where there's darkness, and it can be transformed, that darkness. And particularly through prayer. Because other mitzvahs are really not something of, they might, Torah study is in the mind more. The mind doesn't have the same kind of darkness as the heart does. Other things are action oriented. Prayer is unique. It's particular. It's about the heart, and it's in the heart. That's why it's better. I think I mentioned this story yesterday, but I want to mention it again. By the way, we'll take questions in a few moments. As I mentioned yesterday, or I mentioned again, from a gem video of a rabbi that, not a Chabad rabbi, or seemed to be a Chabad rabbi, I forget his name now, who in the early years came to the Rebbe and said that he has difficulty with prayers, that his mind should be focused. And the Rebbe said, take one of prayer in the Midah, one of the blessings in the Amidah, focus on it day after day, slowly, that the words become very much a part of you. And then move on to another part. So, very important. Prayers can just be sometimes, words that are said rather than touching our heart. So if you're having challenge with that, and we spoke about it yesterday, people having challenge with it, we need to know that our prayers, not only they're precious to God, but they're actually the place where will allow us to touch a deeper place in our heart, that we can get into the deeper layers of our heart and the goodness that's deeper within, as opposed to the outer layers, where that's where we have our own agenda, our own desires, our own lusts, our own addictions. So, something to engage in. Okay, time for questions, times for discussion. Norm, give me just one moment before I lose the feed here on Facebook. A reminder, if you have questions on Facebook or Instagram, 2 question marks and then ask the question. Okay, otherwise it's hard to see the question. June, I see us as God's agents when we give people thank God. It's not about us, it's the connection to God, hence prayer. Right, we're God's agents, absolutely correct, June. And in giving, we're his agent. Very well said. Absolutely. The uniqueness in what we're saying over here is that through this small, simple act of giving, we get such an enormous illumination of an enlightenment in our heart in a time of prayer. That's the nuanced idea over here. So, yeah, but thank you for sharing that. Anna, still struggle to get the idea of my kindness here on earth resonates with God's arousal for his kindness. I don't get it even as a metaphor. Well, God's not human, but let's take it on human terms. When you smile at somebody, that can elicit a smile. You're walking down the street and you say good morning and, have a wonderful day, and you smile to that person. That probably will elicit a response of a smile and maybe a good morning back. If you go down the street and just, you're upset and you show an angry face to somebody, probably you're going to get a reflection of that back, or, whatever. Not something, a beautiful smile, most likely not. In other words, there's something reciprocal. We see that in the human dimension. Why is that in the human dimension? Because that's the way it's in the divine dimension. It's reciprocal. What we express, it brings a reciprocal response from the divine order of things. Now, we have to remember that everything in the physical world is ultimately comes from the spiritual world. We believe in spiritual, it's probably not evolution, it's devolution. It's devolving from a higher level of the light of God in the spiritual world to a contracted, much lower level of divine revelation in the physical world, and it comes from the spiritual. That means, what goes up must come down, right? A couple of drops of water go up, and a raindrop comes down. That's the way God created the world. So, I'm not certain why you would have a difficulty in appreciating that notion that we see in the physical world, that it really, the reason why it's in the physical world is because in the spiritual world it is that way as it evolves into the physical. So explain to me perhaps further what the challenge is over here. Okay. Yes, during the 10 days of penitence, there is more kindness from God at that time than other times during the year. Norm, you had your hand up, I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, please share with us, Norm. Good morning. Don't hear you. Do I not have my... All right. Oh, okay. Maybe now. Norm, if you'd like to speak, please share with us.
Did you not hear what I said?
No, okay, now I hear. Go ahead.
I didn't have anything detailed or profound. I just wanted to ask about the cliffhanger. Specifically, what would you suggest that we focus on? as we're anticipating your next shir.
Okay. So maybe the 2 points that we brought out of with the measure that we meet out is the measure that is reciprocated from on high. So just the idea of being charitable, acts of loving kindness, and that focusing on that is definitely. I know what I try to do. I have a little pocket of money that I put change, tzedakah, and have it on by my talis to make sure talis tefillin every day before prayer that I should be charitable and to make sure I do that before I pray, to think about another, care about another. You think and care about another, then and truly, in the sense that I'm not doing it only that, this way God's going to think and care about me, which is what we're talking about. He's going to think and care about me, but what he's going to think and care about me is that I should going to have an experience of connection to him. Just as I connected to another by giving, right? And even if you're giving into a pushka, into a charity box, having that notion, that thought, that idea, is what we're talking about over here. So that's what we should be focusing on before our prayers. And of course, here speaking something specific, but that being charitable and acts of loving kindness at all times. I hope that helps.
Extremely helpful and nice reinforcement. Also, I have to mention that Jeffrey, next to me here on stage, is one of the few friends I had before Clubhouse existed, before the pandemic, and I'm always so glad to see him. Hi, Jeffrey.
Wonderful. Hey, Jeffrey. Please share with us.
Very kind as usual, Norm. Very kind. Thank you. And I feel the same way. Thank you. It was always good to see a friend on here. So Rabbi, why do you think? But let me say, I noticed that the word meet, to meet out, to measure out, is here, and also the quote that I've heard before: "Better 1 hour of repentance of good deeds in this world is, the 1 hour is better than, I don't know if there's a literal end to that that involves 1 hour here versus X number of hours there, or a whole world of time there." But why is there a focus on almost a focus on a quantity? In other words, you're meeting it out. Why not be an unlimited amount of goodness that one is given? Why do you think it's measured here?
You mean, why is it measured to us based on what we do?
Yeah, the word meet is here, so therefore
right.
it's in context of a specific. I mean, even you say a coin, right? I mean, a coin is good enough. I mean,
Right.
But why is that, you think?
So there's two separate things here. Remember, we have a problem over here. Based on this measure for measure, it seems not to be measure for measure what we're doing over here by merely giving a coin to charity and getting such a illumination of our soul during prayer. So that is an issue over here that we'll address tomorrow. But the basic concept of measure for measure is, well, we see in the physical world everything is kind of measure for measure. Let's take very simply: if you eat healthy, then you're going to see that the result of that is that your body is it's going to be in a better position to do whatever it needs to do during the day. But when you eat in a gluttonous way, for example, or eat bad foods, then measure for measure, you see that what occurs as a result of that, right? So you see that when you're angry and upset at people, then, and even whether you're right or wrong, but it doesn't really bring peace, and it doesn't really bring, you know, a healthy conclusion to things. But when you are, you know, nice and warm and caring, and even though if you bring up concerns that you have, and in that manner, you see that, you know, that there is a different result. So, you know, that's the way God created the world, and it's why did He create the world that way? Why shouldn't? Well, there's a basic concept of what's called namadich sufa, bread of shame. Now, you know, based on the efforts that we put in, is the achievement. So, to get something for free, although the advertising here in Montreal, there was, you know, a company advertising, you know, free feels good. It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't really feel good in the end. When you worked hard and you achieve something, then you feel an ownership. And ultimately, what God wants is our ownership, our partnership with Him. So, partnership is, you know, dealing with somebody who's buying out his partners because they're not, you know, stepping up to the plate. They're not owning their part and doing their part. So he's buying out their partnership because they're, you know, they're kind of dead weight for him. The idea being that, you know, pull your weight, and because that's what partnership is, and that's what God ultimately wants from us. And therefore, if we got way and above beyond, then that would be, you know, as a general rule, would not be what God ultimately wants to achieve for us.
So it's a way to understand. This is a question. So it's a way to understand that, like particular actions, like that, like we can do a thing. It's a discrete thing that we do. It's not just like a random. It's not just an idea that we have that we should be this way towards people. Yeah, we are that way, but it's a way of understanding that it's almost like that it's deed, that it's kind of event driven, that it's task driven for us. I mean,
right? It's task driven, and the beautiful thing in this is that, you know, the notion, and this is actually another important point. That you know, the notion is that, you know, if we do something good for another, then we know that, you know, hey, you've helped somebody, you made a difference in someone's life, and that's beautiful, and that's amazing. You know, the notion that I matter, that I can do something that has value to another. That's what makes us human. That's what gives us purpose. But here it goes a step further, that it actually, my kindness brings a reciprocal a kindness from above, from the divine. It means not only do I matter, and is there something reciprocal to the acts of loving kindness that I do to another, that they reciprocate, whether it's with a smile or a thank you or whatever it is, but that we get that from heaven. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty empowering.
If you know, I'm seeing, we're thinking of measure, and I'm seeing one of those, you know, scales like you always see for justice.
Right.
With one thing on the other. Obviously, it's not reciprocal from above because it's not measured that way. What we get is not measurable like that. But in that way of understanding, meeting it out, I think it's a little bit, you know, clearer.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you as always for good questions and discussion. John, could the concept of mida keneged mida, measure for measure, be said to equate with the saying what goes around comes around? Yes, definitely. That could be equated with that. Sarah, I tend to love to give to charity, to organizations that touch my heart, even when I can't afford it. My problem is I ask, why is that when I am in deep pain, that I have a deeper sense to give more? I guess when you're in deep pain, you could become a victim of your pain, or you could, it allows you to find a deeper place inside of yourself, Sarah, and that sounds like what you're doing, to find a deeper place inside of yourself to even be more giving, which that's actually pretty powerful. Usually pain, not usually, but often at least, pain, what it does is create a victim. I become a victim of the pain, and I feel bad, and I feel sorry for myself. That's often what happens. But when pain is coming and we actually, because of that, are more charitable, that's amazing. That's really digging deep. Kol hakavod. Power to you. Anna, in human dimension, it is clear. Spring waters. Okay. Yossi. Oh, all right. Yossi, formerly from Montreal, now in Australia. He's asking, am I saying that we should pray for something that we want, but rather pray for what he thinks we need, or to connect to Hashem? All of the above. We should pray to God just because he's God, and we want the relationship with God. At the same time, now that we are connecting because he's my Father, he's my King, he's my God, it's personal. A personal connection. Now, because of that, ask for what you need, or what he thinks that you need, that he needs, that he thinks that you need. Whatever God you think I need, please give it to me. Whatever it is, I'm ready. Yes, so it should be all of the above. The order might be, though, pray to connect. I've told this story before. I think I just recently told this story. I told the story, the joke. I don't know, maybe not a good joke, but the point. The son calls his father Sunday afternoon from college and says, "Hey, Dad, what's happening? What are you doing?" "Oh, it's Sunday. Must be Sunday football. How are the games?" His father says to him, "New son, so how much money do you need?" In other words, are we making the call because we need something, or are we making the call because it's my father? I want to talk to my father. I want to connect. Not because I need something from him. I want to connect. Now that we're talking, you know what? Ooh, you know what? Actually, you know what? If you don't mind, It's the same thing, God. We're talking to him, we pray to him because we want to connect. And while we're connecting, actually, could you bring a refuah shlema to this person? You know what? I'm going through this challenge now. Give me the strength to get through it. I need, this is happening. I need your assistance to make this happen. Wonderful. You should do that 100%. But just don't make the call only to get what you want. And by the way, if that's all you're making the call, better than not making the call. That's better than not making the call. Should the son not call his father on Sunday afternoon? And even though he has in mind that all he's making the call for because he needs something from his father, that itself is actually beautiful. That I need my father. I need him. There's things in my life that I need him. Now, it might be advice. It might be some money, right? Whatever, but I need it. That itself is beautiful. So if that's all it is, make the call. Daven. Put on your tefillin. Connect. Absolutely. Chaya. My volume is not up. You live in Israel, so it's hard to hear. I have to shout louder to Israel. I think that's what an Israeli mentality, that you got to shout. Just kidding. They
all shout. You might as well.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's a mentality. So I'm saying if she's saying it's in Israel, you can't hear. I don't know if it's about my volume or if it's about the mentality. Yeah, again, please, no offense. But by the way, I happen to be Israeli, so it's okay. I can make jokes about Israelis. I was born in Israel. For those who don't know, now you do.
Were you born in Kfar Chabad?
No, Tel Aviv.
Oh, all right. You're metropolitan, okay.
Yes, in Tel Aviv. But my parents left after 10 weeks, so, basically I was just born there. Yeah. All right, any other questions, any other comments, any other thoughts? Beautiful.
It's good to see Norm and Jeffrey here.
Yeah, tag team.
Yeah, they're good men.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Norm, what's happening with the, any news with the tefillin?
Yeah, well, I have a pair right here, and I'm improving in my efforts to put them on every day.
Amazing. All right, kol hakavod.
I enjoy it. And you just gave me some inspiration and a little tweak in my practice to put the pushka next to the tefillin and the siddur. So also, I have all this change around, so this is what I liked, that I'll add something to my practice and put a little bit in the stock box.
That's beautiful.
Now, V, do we know each other? You seem familiar, but I haven't seen you in a while.
Maybe because I changed my picture, like you don't see my face, but yeah, I've had conversations with you on Clubhouse.
It's hard for me to keep you organized in my hard drive of my brain if you change the picture. I see. Okay. Well, so you're also on the Jewish journey?
Yes, sir. I've had conversations with you about your journey as well.
Well, good. Excellent. Thanks.
Beautiful. Amazing. So Anna's saying, perhaps I can use a metaphor of binary language, the 0 and the 1, to understand the relationship between God and the human creature. The whole, what's there is here, the symbiotic relationship between God and us. Does that make sense? Yes. Connect and disconnect, right? 1 and 0. Connect or disconnect. And that's actually everything ultimately comes in that form. Is this connecting me to the divine? Is it connecting me to God? Is it connecting to my soul, or to my inner soul, or am I disconnected? Or disconnect, that's 1 and 0. Yeah, that concept. I hope that brings a little more clarity. Okay. Heather, I know now that tzedakah prior to prayer amplifies the impact. Absolutely beautiful. Okay. All right, folks. Reminder, 12:45. We're learning the laws of Yom Tov, of holidays. Come and join us for Rambam on Chabad ZK or on Zoom. 770-6085. All right, folks. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you for Chabad Zichron Kedoshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day.